Hey class, welcome back. Just to kind of give a little review again, we've had some skirmishes with the British, Lexington and Concord. The British have basically uh, kicked any kind of colonial or patriot presence out of Boston, and we had that first meeting of the Continental Congress, and they're looking at getting together again, which is where we're going to focus and really look at what the declaration of what their Declaration of Independence was. So the Second Continental Congress, give us some background on this. The second meeting of the Congress occurred in 1775. A big topic of discussion for this group was the worsening relations with Great Britain. They could see that things are deteriorating. They're still of a mindset though that they don't want to break apart. They want to repair whatever damage has been done in the relationship and continue as if uh, nothing had really happened, so to speak, is how the Patriots are looking at it. The main leaders at this Congress were John and Sam Adams, George Washington, Patrick Henry, and Ben Franklin. They're going to be the most outspoken and really put forth their ideas. Like I said before, they're not looking to separate from Great Britain. They want to repair the relationship. They want to get back together and just kind of keep things humming along for both sides. The Patriots, the colonies understand that it's an advantageous relationship to be part of the British Empire, and it isn't something that they want to break apart from just yet. Some key actions that they took. They declared that they needed to start printing colonial money. They set up a post office. Um, they developed some foreign policy. Uh, they wanted to have contingency plans in case things didn't go the way they wanted them to go, and they wanted to be able to have policy set up where everybody was on the same page when it came to interacting with foreign countries, which we know happens with France wants to get involved in the war because they are the longtime enemy of Great Britain, and they just wanted to have a common page that anybody who was dealing with foreign policy would be acting from the same interests. They knew they needed to raise a continental army, and they selected George Washington to be the general of that army. It was, near unanimous approval. Everybody put their support behind General Washington based upon the success and actions that he took, during the French and Indian War, mostly. So they knew that he was experienced, and they felt he was the right man for the job. And then they sent Great Britain a petition. Basically, a petition is a way of asking somebody to do something, and you write it on paper. And this became known as the Olive Branch petition. And the significance of the Olive Branch is that it was something that you would send to somebody you were fighting or squabbling with, and it's like a token of peace. Like, hey, we want to discuss terms of peace. Um, and King George, basically tore it up. He tore it up, and he said, "Hey, this isn't working. You folks have determined our course of action, and we're gonna set forth on that and take you to task for what you've been doing." So while the Congress is meeting, they've selected Washington as their general. The war starts to heat up. Um, these activities, these skirmishes, these minor battles, so to speak, so far are still occurring. And there's a significant one, though, in that George Washington was able to basically recapture the port city of Boston. And what this picture shows is General Howe getting the retreat ready. He's taking his troops out of Boston, and the Continental Army has done a nice job of getting the British away from there. We've talked about how important the city of Boston is with its seaport, and the Continental Army knew that this would be a place that they would need to control. The other impact of this was people were on the fence. Do we want to support Great Britain? Do we want to support the Patriot cause and break away from Great Britain? And what this victory did was solidify thought in that, hey, these Minutemen, these militias are having some success against Great Britain. Maybe this is something that we want to get behind and be supportive of. So it helped swing those that were sitting on the fence over to the Patriot cause. So also at this Second Continental Congress, the men that were there, they'd break off into committees to problem solve and deal with different things. And they had a committee on drafting this Declaration of Independence. So some background on that. As we've noted several times, there was a lot of debate. A lot of questions remain. Is this really what we want to do? Do we want to separate from Great Britain? Is this what's going to be best for everybody living in the colonies? So they were trying to think about a big picture. All 13 of the colonies. Is this something that everyone's going to be supportive of? So they sat down in this committee to draft this Declaration of Independence. And Thomas Jefferson was one of the primary contributors within the committee itself. And Jefferson got a lot of inspiration from the writings of John Locke. He was an English philosopher, and he really felt that, speaking of Locke, that people were born with a certain amount of rights, which is where we get that life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And that's kind of been changed. They looked at it as life, liberty, and ownership of property, land to farm, basically. So that's going to be like a key inspiration for Jefferson as he's writing this Declaration of Independence. So the Declaration itself, a lot of places you look, it says it has 3 parts. I say it has 4. I include the preamble in that. The we the people. The government exists. Within the preamble, the message was the government exists to protect the people. That is the job of the government. And if the government isn't doing that, it's the right of the people to abolish that government and form a new one. There's also a Declaration of Natural Rights. These are the things, these are unalienable rights. Everybody is born with these, natural. There's a list of grievances, or the things that the colonies feel that Great Britain has basically thrown shade at them, right? Hey, they're not letting us do these things. And then there's the Resolution of Independence. So what it comes down to then is basically, what is the Declaration saying? It's saying that all men are created equal, and there are certain unalienable rights that the government should never violate. These rights include the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as we mentioned before, when the government fails to protect those rights, it is not only the right of the people, but also the duty of the people to overthrow the shackles of that government and form something new. So to kind of sum everything up here, looking at the Second Continental Congress got together, they took some action, they drafted some contingency plans. Hey, if this goes not the way we want it to, and we end up getting into basically a war with Great Britain, what are the things we need to have ready to go? Post office, money. They picked a leader, George Washington, General of the Continental Army, and then they drafted this declaration to let King George know, hey, we're declaring our independence, it's official, we're going to try and break away from you. So we'll talk to you next time.